Knicks-Pacers, Logan, was an awesome game. Ends up not really being the story of the night because just wow, Minnesota. But this was a really, really fun competitive game down to the wire. The Knicks take this one as they do, and Jalen Brunson goes for 40 again as he does. What's your biggest takeaway from this game one?
These teams are super evenly matched, Carson. I thought that this was going to be a runaway, not a runaway series for New York, but I thought they would convincingly win. And I think Indiana can hang. I think their ball movement balances out New York's elite defense, right? It's an interesting stylistical difference in how these teams play. Like, the Knicks want to play super slow, methodical. The Pacers want to play upbeat, and the Knicks played pretty up-tempo in this one too. But it's just interesting, man. Like, all the Pacers' ball movement, the Knicks balance it out with how elite their rotations are. I just think that they're a really evenly matched, two evenly matched teams. Like, the elite offensive creation that's around Indiana, so many different guys that can shoot, that can put the ball on the floor, that can create for themselves, and then so many elite defenders on New York. Like, it is super balanced. I want to give a big shout out to Jalen Brunson in this one. The ending of this game, Carson, soured on me a little bit just because of the refs getting involved. Like, I hate pinning it on them, but you got the Haliburton foul on the strip versus Brunson where it seemed obvious. I'm sitting there on my TV going, that's a strip. The refs call it. I'm a little peeved at that one. You have the kick ball that gets called on Nesmith where I'm also going, dang, man, that pretty clearly looks like his hand touched it. I don't know why you're calling that one. And then you got the illegal screen on Dante DiVincenzo. Just when the refs get involved that much, it's really frustrating as a fan, especially with a game that is so good, man. It's back and forth, and it's just flowing. And the refs ruin it a little bit for me, but it's a Jalen Brunson masterclass, man. 43, 6-6 in this one, 14 of 26 from the field. On the playoffs now, Carson, he's 37, 9-5 on 55% true shooting, specifically 36.6 points per game. It's the 10th most points per game in a single playoff run in NBA history right now. Like, he is doing historic stuff. He's got 40 points in 4 straight games. A couple nights back, he broke the Knicks franchise record for points in a playoff game. It's an absurd burden that he's carrying, man. 30 field goal attempts per game, such a high usage rate, but he can just take it. Like, he can hold up to this, man. He's such a genius operator, but the shot making is what was ridiculous to me down the stretch in this one, man, consistently. These are not easy buckets, man. The turnaround fades on the low block, getting inside in the teeth of this defense. And it's a team effort, dude. Brunson can't do this without him, like these other guys. DiVincenzo. Honestly, without this whole starting 5, that's really it. I know everybody knows this number, dude. 46 points to 3 bench points. That's crazy. Indiana notches 46 to the Knicks 3. And the starting 5 just pulls their weight, man. DiVincenzo gives you 25. OG gives you great defense. Josh Hart is a superhero. I'm ready to give that man his cape, man. 24 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists in this one, 9 to 13 shooting. He's a superhero role player. And I'm just so proud that he was consistently getting downhill. That's the thing, man. When Brunson is the only guy that is getting into the teeth of the defense, you need somebody, whether it's OG, whether it's DiVincenzo, you all need them to pull their collective offensive weight, but you need somebody else to switch it up a little bit and get downhill, dude. And Hart did that consistently in this game. I was happy that he wasn't just settling for threes. He's done that. And Josh Hart has shot really well in the playoffs thus far, way above his means from the regular season. But he only shoots 1 3 in this one. And I thought it was him really knowing what he does well and kept getting to the hole, kept finishing through contact. This is a good win for the starting 5 of the Knicks, man. But I was pretty confident that the Knicks were going to convincingly disrupt Indiana. And they shoot themselves in the foot a little bit in this one, too. 22 turnovers to 14. Indiana wins the turnover battle. But I think we're in for a battle, Carson. I thought the Knicks were going to finish this one off in 5 or 6. I'm leaning towards Knicks in 6 or 7, man. I think Indiana's offensive creation advantage, I think they hang around and linger a little bit longer in this one. And they put up a hell of a fight on the interior and on the glass in this one too. I really liked Indiana's defensive effort and energy. So I'm swinging the balance a little bit more in Indiana's favor, man. I think this one either goes the distance or goes 6. And I think Indiana's going to hold up really well in this series, man. the Knicks don't have a ton of offensive creation around Brunson, and Indiana just has a ton of guys that can contribute every single night. That's what I learned from this one.
Well, I think that's been clear. Like, there's no question that this Indiana offense was just significantly better than New York's. The question was going to be how much could New York take advantage of the fact that this Indiana defense is significantly worse than theirs, and how much would having the best player on the floor matter? And those are ultimately the reasons that I still picked New York to win this series, in 6 in my case. But Indiana has a lot of weapons, dude, and that's what's apparent on a night like this. That's what's been apparent. Tyrese Haliburton at the beginning of this year was just phenomenal, right? Post-hamstring injury hasn't been the same. I still think people understate his offensive impact. I saw a crazy tweet today, bro. I saw somebody ask if he was top 50. Like, dude, you are not watching, or you don't understand what's going on. Like, of course, he had a really bad game today, but we talked about this last year. He needs to score more. He needs to be more aggressive. He needs to shoot way better. But he's still a phenomenal decision maker. He's so valuable pushing the tempo. He's an elite passer, and defenses still treat him as if he is a constant scoring threat. I would argue sometimes too much so. Like, he gets blitzed a couple times in this game where I'm like, why? He's not going to shoot. He's not shooting the ball. He wasn't nearly good enough in this game, but he's still a really good offensive player. But my point is, even when he's not great, even when he's not good as he was in this game, they just have a lot of good basketball players, man. That was the craziest stat. Post Siakam trade, when he was on the floor without Haliburton, the Pacers had a 126 offensive rating. Like, they still have multiple really capable ball handling guards, good passers. They still have shooting everywhere. They have lots of good athletes, and they run no matter what. But this was a bad performance from Hallie because he just clearly lost confidence, and he throws that ball away with like 3:15 left, where Turner's clearly popping, and that's the right read, and he just leads him too much, and it's just a careless turnover. And then Andrew Nembhard starts running your clutch offense, and I really like Andrew Nembhard. That can't happen. Like, Hallie, come on, man. You still need to have the ball in your hands. TJ McConnell is your best guard in this game. I love TJ McConnell, but like, Hallie, you just have to be better than this. But their offense was still awesome, and that's where you have to give props to all their dudes. Miles Turner, for what he's done as a pick and pop threat, what he did in this game, attacking mismatches in spots. Like, he was just excellent. He's been an excellent offensive player. TJ is going to push the tempo, and he's relatively quick, and he's getting downhill, and he's always going to be awesome for mid-range, and he's a really good passer, and he competes. That was one thing that I was really happy with from Indiana in this game. We know what they can do pushing the tempo. We know what they can do offensively. They really competed in this game. And there were a couple games against Milwaukee where I was like, yeah, you guys don't have great defensive personnel, but come on, man. Like, you have to leave it all out there. This is the playoffs. And I felt they did that in this one. And their bench really was phenomenal. Isaiah Jackson gave awesome minutes, super active defensively, finishing well. Ben Shepherd was knocking down his shots. Obi was running the floor and hitting his threes. And everybody was involved in that ball movement. It's some of the most beautiful offense. They've assisted on 70% of their buckets in these playoffs, Logan. Like, the ball just does not stick. And I do want to give Hallie credit for that because I think it's infectious. They just have so many smart, skilled offensive players. And that kept them in this game very much. But Jalen Brunson ultimately just did his thing, man, and was so great in the closing stretch of this game, using guard-on-guard screens to get a switch and then get a step. And the mid-range shot making, to me, particularly out of isolation, was just phenomenal. The ability to decelerate, stop on a dime, and then hit you with the turnaround, hit you with the pull-up. Scored 15 points on 10 isolations in this game. And no Pacer can guard him in single coverage. Certainly not Andrew Nembhard, and I was surprised that he was the primary matchup. When we previewed this series, I thought it would be Aaron Nesmith because in the regular season, Nesmith guarded him better, and he's bigger and longer and just more athletic, a better defender. Like, I think that they have to make that switch, but ultimately, like, there were times where Brunson would hunt Nesmith on a switch, and he was still mostly getting what he wanted. And I think Indiana probably just has to try to force the ball out of his hands more. But the problem is when he's isolating, you can't, right? It's not pick and roll where you can blitz it. You've already committed 2 defenders to that action. So it's more natural. When you are trapping a guy outright, like, now you're giving a very clear 4-on-3, even more of an advantage. So he's just incredible. 4 straight games with 40 plus is ridiculous. And that's a key in this series. Indiana has more offensive weapons, but Brunson right now is so much more reliable than what you're getting from either Indiana star. With just when it comes to closing time, like who's going to be the best player on the floor? You don't even pause. You don't even question. Tyrese Haliburton wasn't running the clutch offense in this game. And Jalen Brunson was just getting bucket after bucket. And that's a huge difference in this series.
It is a huge difference. And the reason that, I think Indiana provides a good counter for the Knicks defense too is it is the ball never stops. Like it is crazy unselfishness. The reason that I think the Knicks were able to succeed so much against Philly in the first round was that, Embiid, the ball sticks, right? The ball gets stagnant. Embiid's, got the ball at the elbow or, nobody's moving off ball. So what does this allow the Knicks defense to do? Well, it allows them to get ready for what's about to happen. Just like anticipate, all right, we're going to need to crash. There's not a ton of movement. And it allows them to cheat a little more and to play to what they expect is going to happen. Like, the ball is moving so fast here, the Knicks don't have time to set up. And I think Miles Turner is a big key in this series. I think he is the key, in my opinion. Him and Siakam, really. Because the ball is moving so fast, what we saw New York do a lot in this game was switch everything. You would have possessions where Hartenstein's getting on Haliburton, or you've got Josh Hart on Miles Turner. And I am doing so much, and Indiana does a phenomenal job of this, of just running little actions. If it's a pin down, if it's a screen up top, I'm doing that, and I'm trying to get as many switches as possible. Nobody could stop Miles Turner. And even switches on OG Anunoby, where he provides at least a physical big body, long arms. He in theory can provide some resistance. Turner was just shooting over the top of him. And with how great he has been all series long, that is the guy I'm looking to feed on switches. I'm looking to feed him the ball, him and Siakam. And Siakam had a down game here too, where he wasn't as dominant as, he was in the first series of those first couple games. He's also been surprisingly shaky at the free throw line, just missing shots there. Those are the guys I'm looking to get, easy looks off switches, man, because you're only running Hartenstein or Robinson. And I do think the Knicks could maybe look to a Chiwa too, if they want to match just bodies. I don't love a Chiwa minutes, but he does provide, a good counter when you're getting beat on those mismatches. But Turner and Siakam are going to be the guys that I'm looking to take a step up and I'm looking to feed. Carson, can we expect more from Haliburton? I don't know if.
More than this.
Yeah, I don't.
More than what he did in this game.
But can we really expect him to be tangibly better with the level he's been at during these playoffs?
Yes, because this is the game in which it's not just that he scored the fewest points, he created the fewest really good shots, I would say. He still made good decisions out of pick and roll, but 6 points on 2 of 6 shooting is another level down from what we've seen from him. I'm not expecting him to look like start of the year Hallie. That ship has certainly sailed, but I do think he can play better than he did in this one. But I like Indiana's offensive formula as is. I don't think that Hallie needs to be great for them to be good offensively. For them to win this series, he definitely needs to be a good bit better. But you mentioned Miles Turner, dude, and also when they're in drop, those pick and pop looks, man, he is just a really, really good floor spacer. He's a really, really good shooter of the basketball, and that's been problematic all year. But he's just stepped up and delivered in the playoffs so far. You mentioned the matching bodies, and that's a really interesting dynamic because nobody likes to play slower than the Knicks, but also nobody likes to play their starters, or really whoever is playing well, but mostly their starters, more than Tom Thibodeau. And I just wonder, over the course of this series against the team that likes to play the fastest and arguably is willing to go as deep in their bench and play 9 guys real minutes than the Pacers, New York was pushing the tempo in this game. They weren't really shying away from that, but just as a matter of conditioning and fatigue, I wonder how long that's sustainable for. I thought New York was really good in terms of transition offense. They had 34 transition points. That's their most in a game since January. Josh
Hart was getting out on every break, man.
Always, bro. He's always so good pushing in transition. That was big in this game. And it was just such an easier offensive performance for them than what we saw against Philly. Brunson was great, but also getting an efficient 24 from Josh, getting an efficient 25 from DiVincenzo, who gave you 13 in the third quarter, and of course the game-winning 3. Such a phenomenal shooter. Also, these guys are just able to get a step on Miles Turner when he's out in space and get layups, open layups, which didn't happen against the Sixers. Every time one of these role players came downhill, it was, oh boy, I guess I'm going to chuck up a floater over Embiid, which is probably going to miss, or I'm going to kick out to a shooter. It's just a much easier defense that they're facing, as we knew. But I do just want to give props to the superhuman role players again. Josh Hart, DiVincenzo. OG had a huge defensive stretch in this game in the clutch where he gets 2 steals, one of which was just on that Haliburton errant pass, but still he gets the steal and then he pushes in transition. Big stop on Siakam where he stood up in single coverage. I thought that was an interesting battle. I wonder how much more aggressive Siakam will be overall in this series, but I actually thought he did pretty well against OG. Like, that's a really challenging one-on-one matchup, and he was able to use his size and touch advantage enough, and OG didn't really bully him physically on the block. And also, Spicy P is just so good at running out in transition, getting deep position, and then quickly, decisively making a move. So I thought that he fared relatively well in that matchup, but OG made huge plays. Hartenstein, again, was awesome with the touch shots, nice as a passer, just like everybody did their job again. And that's what's so reliable with the Knicks. Everybody is going to do their job. Somebody's going to step up and be the hero, and Brunson is going to be phenomenal.
Do you think Indiana got this game stolen from them at all with the calls down the stretch?
Dude, you know me. I hate talking about the refs. I thought there were a couple of really bad no calls early in the Minnesota Nuggets game, or calls like when Naz Reid just didn't get hit on the face at all, but acted like he did. But overall, I liked that they allowed that game to be physical. And I always just prefer not talking about officiating because I think broadly things even out, and different crews officiate differently, and you have to adjust to the game. And sometimes they outright miss calls, but very rarely is that the thing that determines the outcome of a basketball game. I will say, though, if you're a Pacers fan, I get you being pissed off, and I get you blaming officials in this one, because at the end of the day, dude, like, just egregious calls in the last couple minutes of this game. The phantom foul on Brunson where he just fell down, which luckily the Pacers got to challenge and that was overturned, but like that just should never have been called on the floor. The kicked ball to me is the worst. I've never seen a missed kick ball call like that in my life, Logan. Never in my life. First of all, kick ball calls are often wrong because the rules tell you that you have to be deliberately kicking the ball. Nikola Jokic should get called for kick balls, right? And
so
he does, of course.
You're telling me that if
it's incidental contact with your foot, that's not a kicked ball violation.
I never knew that.
I never knew that violation, which makes it even crazier because I don't know how you could argue that Nesmith deliberately kicked that ball, but I don't know what the ref saw because there was no way that it even looked like he kicked that ball. That's just a normal deflection. That was crazy to me. And then the screen, like, come on, man. What? That's a normal NBA screen. Like, yes, it is a moving screen. It is a moving screen. Guys set 50 moving screens a game. You call it when it's egregious. You call it when a guy really leans in with the shoulder. And if you're going to call it at that stage, it better really be obvious.
Yeah, it's like a holding call, dude. You could call that on the Trench Boys all game long. Like,
I just couldn't believe that. I could not believe that. 13 seconds on the game, like potential go-ahead possession. You call that soft of a moving screen? If the guy commits a flagrant moving screen, if it's obvious, if it has a significant impact on the play, you call it. Like, I'm not somebody who believes, oh, you just let everything go on the last possession of the game. Of course not. You're still playing basketball. That's a basketball play that happens routinely. And that's just where I was so upset. And I thought that it just marred an awesome basketball game. And I don't want to be thinking about the refs. I don't want to be like, man, that sucked. But it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. New York, ultimately, like, shout out, Jalen stepped up and he made the clutch plays in this game. But also, Indiana's offense, like, was mostly executing down the stretch. Like, when you're talking about the last couple minutes, I don't know, just for them to not have a real crack at it didn't sit right with me.
I completely agree. Like, it left me, it was an awesome game. That was one of the best games of these playoffs so far, man. How back and forth that was in the clutch, in the balance. I hated that. No, it soured the game for me. I just, anytime they interject that much too, man, and it was just really weird to me that all of the calls were skewed in New York's favor. Not all of them. Like and credit to them for getting that call right on the floor, the one where Brunson gets trapped. Great trap from Indiana on the baseline in the corner. And he throws it back off Hallie to get it off him, but it bounces off him. Like, credit to you guys for getting one call, but You
That's
blow the
pretty
three
obvious,
others.
though.
Like, yeah, exactly. And
Now,
it
they
just,
did get the call wrong, the ball that was off Nemhart's foot that they initially called
yeah.
to be Pacers ball, but then the Knicks challenged that one. So the two meaningful calls that stood went against the Pacers. And like I talk about how their offense was executing down the very final stretch of this game, like they scored on 3 of their final 4 possessions before that. So that's the thing. It's like, again, normally it's not the thing that decides a game. Normally a team is going to out execute the other. But it felt like, okay, Indiana is actually doing their job offensively at least. And they just don't get a chance at the end. That's a bummer. But good for the Knicks. I love this Knicks team. I love watching them. That did
Oh,
leave a
yeah.
bit of a sour taste in the mouth, but overall, it was a deserved win. Like they played really good basketball in this game. And again, Jalen Brunson down the stretch did his thing. Was the best player on the floor. Incredible.